So without further ado, um, we are so thankful and honored to have Elizabeth Ann Quirino as our instructor today, or my friend Tim's mom, as I've known her for around 10 years. Elizabeth Ann Quirino is a Filipino-American author and multi-awarded winner of the Plaridel Writing Awards for Best in Journalism, given by the Philippine American Press Club in San Francisco. Her food essay, "100 Mangoes in a Bottle," has won a Doreen Gamboa Fernandez Food Writing Award. She was an awardee of the FWN, Filipino Women's Network 100 Most Influential Women of the World in 2013. Betty Ann, as she is fondly called, was born and raised in Tarlac, Philippines, and now based in New Jersey. She's a journalist, author, and a correspondent for Positively Filipino online magazine. She blogs about Filipino home cooking recipes on her popular site, Asian in America. Betty Ann travels often to the Philippines and throughout Asia in search of traditional recipes and stories about culture and personalities. She is currently deep in the trenches writing her next book on Filipino food and family relationships. Find Betty Ann Quirino on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and her site AsianinAmericaMag.com, which I can attest personally. Every time I see her Instagram photos makes me extremely hungry. So without further ado, please welcome Betty Ann.
Hi, good afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Thank you, Gino, and thank you, Francine, for that very generous and wonderful introduction. Thank you to the FAM, the Filipino American Mentorship Program of the PNDA. I appreciate your inviting me over for a cooking session this afternoon. We're going to have fun and we're going to learn this afternoon. I'm going to demonstrate a classic Filipino dessert, polvoron. Uh, polvoron comes from the root word polvo, which means powder, translated from Spanish. It has a sweet shortbread sort of consistency, and it has some very basic ingredients which you could actually find in your pantry right now. There's flour, a cup and a half of flour, and then there's 3/4 cups of sugar. There's a cup of melted butter and a cup of dried powdered milk. Do you still have me on, Gino?
Yeah, I'm just showing the ingredients.
Okay. I have pre-measured to save time. I have pre-measured the ingredients for us today. And I'm also going to let you know what equipment you might need. It's not elaborate equipment, but basically it will be helpful if you have polvoron molds like this. It has a spring and it shapes the powdered candy into an oval or round shape, right? I purchased this polvoron molds years ago in the Philippines, and I now find them online on Amazon or Filipino online grocery stores or specialty shops. Now, if you don't have this, don't panic. You can still make polvoron with small cookie cutters, about 1 inch in diameter. I have different sizes only because I wanted to show you the large ones I use to make polvoron for gifts or presents, seasonal during Christmas, Easter, birthdays. Okay, so it's not for commercial use. But if you're going to make, you're going to create a food business or home business and would like to sell polvoron, it's ideal to use the small ones like this, the small polvoron molds. You will also need colored tissue paper. I have cut some here in bright spring colors. Or if it's Christmas, you could have red ones like this and green, right? Now, again, don't panic. If you do not have cellophane or colored tissue paper like that, here's what you can do. If you want to give them away, you can use fluted paper cups, oval or round, small or large, depending on your mold. And then you can arrange, you don't have to wrap them. You can arrange your polvoron in a box like this, lined with a colored tissue paper, and give it as a present. And finally, don't panic if you don't have molds, if you don't have a cookie tin, if you don't have time for anything. Here's what you can do. You can put your polvoron in a mason jar like this, not molded, just loose powder, and it's polvoron in a jar, which is a spoonable dessert. Tie a bright ribbon, whether it's Easter, spring, Christmas, birthday. Put the tag for the sender, for the person who's receiving it. And you might also want to include the list of ingredients for safety, right? So polvoron in a jar is another alternative. As you can see, it's a very versatile dessert made from simple ingredients. Any questions so far, Gino?
No questions so far.
Okay, let me start. Now I pre-measured, in case you're cooking along, I pre-measured 1.5 cups of flour into this saucepan. And you want to turn on your fire, your heat, to medium or medium high. You know your stove or your stove top better than I do. You want a medium high heat. You don't want to burn the flour. You're basically going to we're basically going to toast the flour for about 3 to 4 minutes. Right? Now, this is a process you cannot leave. You have to stand by the stove while you're doing it, but 3 to 4 minutes goes fast. You can be watching TV or listening to a podcast or listening to music while you're doing that. Do not get distracted, please, because flour can burn fast. Do not fiddle with your phone. Do not go on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, because you are going to get lost in that rabbit hole and forget. Okay, now, what you want is to have that aroma of a toasted flour. It's going to be very, very light brown in appearance. Our lights are very bright today here in the kitchen, so you might not see the brown effect. I'm going to time myself maybe for 3 minutes, because I've been mixing it for about a minute already. All right. Now, I've also pre-measured the other ingredients. I've also melted 2 sticks of butter here. I did it ahead of our broadcast because we don't want the butter too piping hot when we mix it. You would like the ingredients at room temperature if possible. One important thing I'd like to tell you is that when you make polvoron, please make sure all your ingredients are brand new, newly purchased, not the same day, but the same week, if possible. Even butter, butter should not be rancid, because it will affect the final outcome of your polvoron. So if your butter has been sitting on your shelf in the refrigerator for more than 3 months, I suggest you taste the flavor first. before you start making this. Because otherwise, your polvoron, if the butter is old and tastes rancid, then your polvoron is going to taste rancid in the end. So you don't want to do that. Also, the powdered milk. I have used Nido all the time. I pre-measured it, a cup. And full disclosure, the brand did not pay me to mention them. I have also found online in Asian groceries Bear Brand powdered milk. I have used that. Today I'm using Nido. Now, difference in taste is hardly noticeable, but Nido is a favorite in our household. During the pandemic last year, it was hard to find powdered milk, and they raised the prices enormously. And I think the prices settled down by now. You can't store powdered milk for a long time, especially if it has been open. It doesn't last long. Okay, now the saucepan is starting to get hot, and that's a sign that your flour is reaching that very toasted degree. Sugar is granulated sugar, white granulated sugar. No, you don't want to use brown here because then it affects the looks of your polvoron in the end. You're going to have brown polvoron. Okay. Oh, going back to milk. I also have used in the past carnation dried instant fat milk, which is also good if you like that. Before the broadcast, Gino had asked me, there were some inquiries about vegan or vegetarian ingredients. And like I told Gino, I'm not a vegan or vegetarian expert. So I hesitate to give suggestions in that area. The best suggestion I can tell you is that you can show the list of ingredients to a vegan or vegetarian registered dietitian or nutritionist, and maybe they can give you ideas or substitutions that are plant-based. That's the best I can suggest right now. But otherwise, these are always the basic ingredients I use. I have been making polvoron since I was in elementary. In the summers when we were growing up in Tarlac, in the Philippines, my mother will gather us all together during summer. And in the afternoons when it was too hot to be outside, we will be cooking or baking and making this. And that's why. And then through high school, I made polvoron. And then when I went to college, I made polvoron and brought it back to my college dorm in Manila to give to friends. Right. And I'm now married in New Jersey with my husband, and we have adult children, and they like to come home to polvoron. They also make their own. Okay, this is ready now. Here's the thing. You want to have the toasty aroma. That's what defines the polvoron. I will try my best to show you here, but like I said, the lights are very bright today, so you can't see the light brown color. This is a cup and a half of flour, which I toasted for about 4 minutes on medium high. Again, don't get distracted. Do not play with your iPhone or go on Instagram while you're doing this. You want focus. All right. So here's our toasted flour. I'm going to make the basic polvoron recipe right now. And then after we're done with the basic, I can show you how to make 2 more varieties. Okay, so here's my powdered milk. It's a cup. And I'll show you, I've used this Anchor powdered milk. I've also used Nido, It's what I'm using today, only because it's open already and it's a favorite in the household. They did not pay me, so this is not a brand endorsement. It's a suggestion. So I'm adding a cup of powdered milk. And then this is 3/4 cup granulated sugar. Now, before I add the melted butter, I'm going to mix the powdered ingredients well. It doesn't take too long. You know, I've been doing this recipe for so long, for so many years, that I can actually do this with my eyes closed right now, but I won't do that because you're watching and we're talking and we're chatting. How's everyone today? It's the first day of spring. Did you know that? Did you remember that? I'm so excited. Finally, no more snow here on the East Coast. Many things to do, many things to look forward to. And for those who are watching, if you qualify, have you gotten vaccinated? I hope you do, so that we're on our way to normalizing and going back to the world we enjoyed before all this lockdown. Okay, so here it is. It's well mixed. Here's what I suggest. You have your melted butter and make sure you measure it. You use a measuring device that's for liquid. Okay, because these are measuring cups for dry ingredients. These are this and this are measuring cups for liquid ingredients. So you want to be precise about that. Now, I suggest you first pour in half. Why is that? It just makes life easier when you're mixing. That's me. If you pour everything at the same time, it gets tricky. Okay. Now, the consistency and texture of your powdered mixture is going to be coarse, but slightly wet. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Now, let's pour the other half of the melted butter. Like I told you, it would be nice if you can have your butter at room temperature already. If not, that's fine. It's just easier to handle. See, I'm pouring the rest slowly. Why slowly? It's easier to blend. That's why. Also, you can see if it's too wet. If it's too wet, you know, sometimes I hold back a tad bit of butter. It's the butter that will make it stick together in the molds. When you shape it, it's the butter that will help bind all the ingredients. Ooh, right now it smells buttery, creamy, milky, sweet. Those are the aromas I can smell. And it's very tempting to get a spoon right now and dig in and taste it. Not yet. You can wait. And I'm finally pouring the final batch of butter. You see what I just did? It is easier to mix and get the right texture if you pour the butter gradually. Then it's also easier to shape. While I'm mixing, any plans for spring? Any of you? I know it's pre-pandemic and A lot of us can't travel yet, but it's a new beginning, and we have to be hopeful that things will get better, hopefully by summer, right? Also, I just remembered Easter's in a few weeks. You can make polvoron and wrap it in colored wrappers like I did and give them as Easter gifts. When you give them as gifts, I suggest you give a list of ingredients to the persons receiving them, just for health and safety. I always do that. And then let them decide if they can have it or not. Even the brand of butter I include when I give a list of ingredients. There are many health hazards right now, and you want to be careful and you don't want to harm anyone. Okay.
I have a
My
question that
mixture is
came in.
done. Yes, Gino?
So somebody asked, how long does polvoron last after you make them?
The finished product, I refrigerate it so that it takes shape nicely. It firms up. How long does it last? About a week in the refrigerator. That's for safety concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Unrefrigerated, maybe a day or two. But, you know, especially in the summer, you want to refrigerate it now.
Sounds like people really like the presents, the Easter presents idea. So
Yeah, it's a very good, you know, I always give this to friends at Christmas. Here in our town, in northwestern New Jersey, we have, this is the part of New Jersey where there are very few Filipinos. And I, as a custom throughout the nearly 30 years we've lived here, I give polvoron for Christmas. And I do use the giant mold for personal gifts. And one friend told me that they have never seen such gigantic polvoron in their lives. These are Filipino Americans. So I enjoyed I enjoyed that feedback. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to shape polvoron right now. Now, it's better. I'm going to divide the polvoron in 3 batches. The regular, and then I'll show you how to make 2 more varieties, cheese and mocha. Okay, so you want to get 1 cup of each. Okay, this is 1 cup. And I'll have another cup. We're separating the basic polvoron so we can make 2 different varieties. Cheese flavored polvoron and mocha polvoron. Okay, so the basic polvoron recipe actually makes about 3.5 cups of powder. Now,
so we have another question. So you said that makes 3.5 cups. If you wanted to make more, do you suggest making batches of 3.5 cups, or can you just multiply the ingredients?
I will multiply the ingredients because I've done that, especially for the holidays, Christmas. So, but if you're doing it for the first time, I suggest you try making this with the list of ingredients that I just gave and suggested. So just so you get the hang of it. All right. Now, any more questions? I hope that answered it, Gino.
Yes, thank you. No questions right now.
Okay. Here's what's going to happen. Before the broadcast started, I heated up. This is about 3/4 cup of sharp cheddar cheese. This time, grated. And before the broadcast started, I already microwaved it to a semi-melt consistency, which is about 10 seconds on high in the microwave. I'm just separating it now because they firmed up and form a solid mass. But that's good because now they're at room temperature and they're not difficult to handle. Okay, so I have the cheese here. Ooh, it smells so creamy. You know, when it's melted, cheese is even more attractive. Okay, so 10 seconds on high in the microwave, and then it comes out semi-hard, semi-melted. And then you just want to cut across it like this, so that you have a nice coarse consistency to mix, okay? So I have here 1 cup of basic polvoron, and we're going to mix it there. Oh, it looks delicious. And now you want to mix it with the rest of your basic. This is your 1 cup of basic polvoron mixture with a 3/4 cup of grated sharp cheddar cheese, semi-melted on high, 10 seconds. The cheese is what you melt, okay? And it comes out partly solid, partly creamy. And that's what you want to mix into your polvoron. It is very delicious. You know, the basic polvoron recipe is already delicious by itself. But when you add cheese, then it becomes magical. It's like somebody cast a magic spell on it. Don't do that. You can't really cast a magic spell. You have to add the cheese. Okay, see, now you see what I'm doing? Now everything has to be dry. That's why I had to mix it well, because the semi-liquid should be absorbed. Here is what you want it to look like. Okay. There is your cheese flavored polvoron. You have your basic here. You have your cheese flavored here. And now we are going to make the mocha polvoron. Now the mocha is a little tricky. Why is that? It's because your coffee becomes liquidy and then you mix it. But don't worry. Every challenge has a solution, and we are not going to have any problems today. Okay. I use instant coffee. Again, it's not the brand that I'm endorsing. It's just what I have in the pantry. I use about 1/4, and I have my warm water here. Hot or boiling will be good. And you want to use about 1/2 teaspoon. I'm watching it and I'm hoping it melts. If it doesn't melt, I have to fast microwave it. Oh, it melted. I am looking. Okay. Now, you want a little strainer just in case there are granules. You're only going to use 1/8 cup of this liquid. And what I have here is 1 tablespoon. So no, I'm going to use only half of this amount. Okay, you want to use a little strainer like this, just in case there's still coffee granules. And yes, using instant coffee is better in many cases for this recipe than coffee from the coffee maker. I'm not a chemist, but that is what I have observed while making this. Okay, so I added liquid coffee made from hot water and half a teaspoon of coffee granules. And now it tastes like coffee flavored polvoron. I mean, it smells like coffee flavored polvoron. And when you're going to have this, it's really another magical potion that you just made. Hmm? Now, here's the thing. With mocha flavored polvoron, it gets wet, like too wet. You want to mix it well. I have a solution if it's too wet. Okay, mix it well, and you will smell the aroma. What's the solution I have? If it's wet like this, you flash freeze it for like 10-15 minutes. What is flash freeze? You put the whole thing in the freezer. 10-15 minutes so it firms up. Now, I did that before we went live, and here it is. So it becomes dry and firm, but with a mocha flavor so that you can have that mocha flavored polvoron. Okay, so I'll put this away to flash freeze while we start shaping the polvorons.
So we had a couple
Any
of questions.
questions so far, Gino?
Yeah, we had a couple of questions about flavors. One, what is the craziest flavor you've tried? And somebody asked specifically about if you've made like ube polvoron.
I have made ube polvoron. Wait, let me just put this in the freezer quick while we're talking. Yes, I have made ube, and I have used ube powder, but I found that you have to toast the ube powder. The ube powder is made from it's dried dehydrated ube, the purple yam. You have to toast it, otherwise it will have a raw flavor. You have to toast it, and maybe another time I can show that. I have made chocolate flavored polvoron. It's basically the basic polvoron mixture, and I did a chocolate ganache covering over it. I melted chocolate for baking, the solid chocolate for baking. I melted it with heavy cream on a double boiler. That's like advanced polvoron making, and that I do for Christmas. It's also delicious and magical. Maybe next time we can do that. Craziest, I stick to classic flavors. You can add chopped walnuts, chopped kasui, chopped pistachios to a basic polvoron recipe. But then I would be careful if you're giving it away as gifts. For home consumption, if there are no nut allergies, then it's fine. But when you give them as gifts or you sell it as a food business, then you'll have to put a big label on your jar or your container that there are nuts. A disclaimer, all right? So always be careful, always be mindful of health conditions of other people who are going to receive this. It's a safety precaution. Oh, my husband's asking about mango flavored. The problem with adding liquid is that you have to learn to control the amount of liquid versus eliciting the right fruity flavor or something. I have experimented, and I'll get back to you about mango, which is my favorite fruit. So I'll get back to you on that. Any more questions, Gino?
Yeah, just people asking about, if they wanted to experiment with flavors, if you have any like tips or anything.
Yeah, the rule of thumb here is that polvoron is a dried powdered candy, and you need the exact amount of moisture to shape it and to bind it. However, you don't want it very liquidy that you can't shape it and it will just collapse in front of you. All right, so it's a balance of having not too dry, but moist enough to stand being shaped here, and then later wrap. It's not a difficult recipe. It's not like you don't need rocket science for this. It's a matter of practice. That's it. And if all else fails, remember there is the mason jar for a spoonable polvoron dessert. If you're giving it as a gift, you don't have to tell people that you failed in molding the polvoron. No one needs to know that. It's just between you and me and Gino and Francine today. Any questions, Gino?
No, I just know that if the polvoron is too dry, it can get very, very messy from personal experience.
If the polvoron is too dry, it won't hold firm. Okay. If the polvoron is too wet, then you have a disaster, but you can still eat it. And, flash freeze it if it's too wet. Like what I did with the mocha flavored polvoron. And here's something I flash froze earlier. Flash froze is 10 minutes. You don't cover it, just leave it open. Okay, any questions before I start shaping the polvoron?
No, we're good.
Okay, have you ever tried making polvoron, Gino, with the polvoron molds?
No, I specialize in eating.
Ah, okay. Here we go. I'm going to use the large one today only for visual purposes so that you can see. Now, it's a good idea if you're working with 3 flavors, the basic, the cheese, and the mocha. It's a good idea, so you don't get confused, to identify them by colors, right? So let's say your basic is yellow, your mocha is green, or whatever color you like. You can also use white if you like. And your cheese is orange, right? That's so you know what you're giving to friends, or you know what you're eating if it's for home consumption. That's just a suggestion, but you can do whatever you want. You can go wild and wrap them. You can use tissue paper like this, which you buy at craft stores or online. I've seen on Amazon that they have pre-cut already for candy making. You can also use colored cellophane, or you can use parchment paper. I have used parchment or wax paper because I ran out in the past. And when we were growing up in the Philippines, we didn't have specialty colors or or ingredients like equipment like this. So my mother used to wrap it in wax paper or parchment paper or even paper napkins. You know, there's no hard and fast rule. And again, when you have none of those, use a mason jar, put everything in, put the ribbon, and party. Okay, here we go. You get your polvoron mold. You make sure, see, there's a spring like this, okay? If you've never done this before, it takes about a few times of practice. All right, so I'm going to, maybe I'll do one from the cheese so that you see. Okay, so you fill the polvoron mold and just basically roll it around like this. You want everything to solidify. It has to look like this, solid and smooth. This is the fun part. You know, in our household, if my sons were here, and I was making polvoron when they were growing up, it barely makes it to the packaging part because then they will be standing next to me and eating the polvoron as I shape it. That's the fun part. And I miss my sons being here, but they must be watching. And they can make their own polvoron now. Okay, here you go. Right. Now press the spring. Press it down because it's pushing down the powdered candy. Okay, and you lift it. See what happened? Here you go. Then you can go to town wrapping. When you wrap, make sure your fingers are light and nimble. You don't want to press hard or you would deform what you just shaped. And here it is. Cheese flavored. You know, it smells so good. I'm tempted to just eat what I just wrapped for you. All right. Now, let's make a basic one. And I'm using a smaller mold. Again, if you have several molds, if they are shaped oval and round, it's a good idea also to use a specific one for each flavor variety so you can distinguish later on if, like this was cheese, and then now you're making with the basic. Okay, so let's do this again. Okay, so you want to make sure your spring is way down. Okay, so you see this empty part, that's the empty hollow part is what you put inside. And you basically just push down, filling it all up. Okay, you press down so that it firms up and solidifies and binds together. Here's what you want it to look like, solid. Now, the small ones are, I noticed, are what commercial polvorons are sold in Asian Filipino groceries. They use the small size. Nice. Okay, here we go. Here's what it's supposed to look like. Put it down in the center of your wrapper. Release. And there you go. I'm going to hold it up so you can all see. Here's what it's supposed to look like. Can you see, Gino?
We can see. I said that's what we call in Tagalog kuripot.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said that's what we call in Tagalog. We call that kuripot.
Huh? How often do you make polvoron, Gino?
I don't. So I'm going to start now.
Okay. You're nice as gifts. And you know what? If we're locked down in the pandemic, then you can make a batch and give your neighbor. Okay, now I'll show you with the open. If you don't have tissue paper wrappers, you can use muffin tins. These are actually for muffins or candies, muffin cups, which you can buy in the supermarket easily. You want to buy the decorative ones so they look nice because the polvoron is plain colored. Now I'm grabbing the mocha flavored one. Uh, don't forget, I flash froze the other mixture. It's still there. It won't go away. It's not going anywhere. And I'm using an oval one this time, just so I remember that the oval I used was for mocha. Why? Nothing. It's just me remembering what I made. Or you can put little post-it notes on your mixing bowl so you don't forget. Okay, so here, this is why you want to flash freeze your mocha flavored polvoron, because then if it's too wet, then it's hard to shape. So I'm just shaping it now, filling up the hollow center, and you want it to look like that. You want it solid. Okay, so here's my paper thin mold. And release. And there you go. What do you think? What do you think, Gino? Do you want to taste it?
Beautiful. Oh yeah, I want to taste it. Mail
Okay,
it to
so
me
can you
for
imagine you made several? And again, if you're giving us gifts, several flavors, you want to distinguish them with different colors, and then you tell the recipient what you just did. So, you know. Okay. And we can go on and keep repeating that the whole afternoon. But right now, I'm ready for questions if you have any.
Yeah, somebody asked if you knew any any facts about the origin of polvoron. I know you said it comes from the Spanish word for powder. Anything else?
Origin right now, I would imagine no. Historically, I don't really know the exact facts, but I can look that up. But I will think this is a no-bake recipe, okay? And the thing with Filipino recipes that are classic from years ago, you have to remember that in Philippine homes, mainstream, middle income, not everyone had an oven at home. We didn't in Tarlac when I was growing up. We didn't have an oven till I was about 10 years old. Only because electricity and gas are expensive. In most homes, way back when Doreen Gamboa Fernandez wrote this in one of her books, way back when post-war and pre-war, communities had community ovens. So that's how they bake. And this is why we have a lot of kakanins that are cooked stovetop or steamed. And similarly, the polvoron does not need baking. It's just a few minutes of toasting on the stovetop. You're just toasting the flour for about 4 minutes. And I will think that that's the origin of this Filipino dessert. You don't need to bake it in the oven. Ingredients are economical and easy to find. In the Philippines, when I was growing up, powdered milk was the norm and not liquid cow's milk. Powdered milk was the norm, mainly because refrigeration was also difficult for many homes. Okay, so I'm willing to guess that the origin of this recipe is because ingredients are affordable and easy to find. And the cooking method is fairly easy. It's stovetop. Plus, it's versatile and it's easy to make, quick to make. You can actually, if you think about doing this afternoon, in a snap, you can do it. Provided you have fresh ingredients. Now, I cannot overemphasize this. Use good premium butter. Use flour that you just purchased, sugar that you just purchased, and canned powdered milk that is new and newly purchased. Otherwise, it affects. And that's for any kind of cooking. Always use fresh ingredients. And taste it. Ooh. Before you mix anything, taste the butter, taste the milk, taste the flour. If the flour tastes like black pepper and it's peppery, oh, it's old. Do not use it. Any more questions, Gino?
Not right now. I just polvoron is something I definitely relate to Christmas, and in the green and the red cellophane paper. So yeah, it definitely brings back memories.
Yeah, it is. It's also a good, for some states, we're not allowed to sell products that are home based or home cooked. Like in New Jersey, we're not allowed to do that. But for some states, and of course in the Philippines, there are different rules. You can make this a home-based business. Just be mindful of list of ingredients and fresh quality products that you're going to use. I think I've taught you most of what needs to know this afternoon, Gino. Are there any more questions I can answer?
Well, so we'll make a last call for questions from people, but why don't you show us your cookbooks?
Oh, right. Thanks for asking. I do have some cookbooks for all of you who don't know yet. My books are on Amazon. I've written 3 cookbooks, and they are here. Okay, my latest is Instant Filipino Food. My mother's traditional Philippine food in a multi-cooker pot. Okay. This cookbook is all about traditional Filipino recipes, which I learned from my mother, which I have transformed to cooking in an instant pot or multi-cooker. So before that, that was a follow-up to my cookbook, My Mother's Philippine Recipes, which are traditional and classic favorite recipes of my mother. There's a photograph for every recipe, and it has some of the family favorites and some anecdotes about our family and family life. And before that, I published my first cookbook, How to Cook Philippine Desserts, Cakes, and Snacks. And this is very popular because it has cakes and kakanins and snacks. And I learned all of these recipes from my mother, from my Kapampangan aunts, from cousins, from family recipes that were passed around. Now, I've also co-written a history book, Statesman and Survivor, on the late President Elpidio Quirino. This was for his 125th birthday anniversary. And the reason why we came up with this historical book of quotes of the president was all the proceeds go to the President Elpidio Quirino Foundation based in Manila, and it funds the advocacies of the foundation, which are further education for public school teachers, among the many advocacies. And out of a whim and a hobby, I created my own Filipino food coloring book with recipes and no, not recipes, but illustrations of Filipino cooking which you can color, and it's pocket size and you can bring it anywhere. Now, if you don't have time yet to go to Amazon to purchase my books, I have a blog and it's called Asian in America Mag. And I post weekly recipes on my blog. It's everyday home cooking. And I share them on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. I recently gone on TikTok and created some videos. Oh, and I'm also on YouTube. So look for me there. I have some YouTube cooking videos. Yeah, so this is my blog, Asian in America. And I've been around on the blogosphere for about 11 years. And thanks to my sons, Tim Quirino and my son, Constante Quirino, who urged me to put my recipes online and not on a yellow pad. So that's it. Any more questions, Gino?
Yeah, somebody asked how they might be able to purchase your cookbooks then and have you autograph them.
Okay, here's what you can do. My cookbooks are available in paperback or ebook if you want to download them right now. If you purchase a paperback, email me info@ebquirino.com or message me wherever on Twitter or Facebook and give me your address and I'll send you a bookplate with a little gift if you purchase my books on Amazon.
Thank you. And I can attest from personal experience, your blog, whenever I feel like cooking and I need some ideas, I just go to your blog and there's a lot of recipes that are delicious. And I also like how you incorporate new cooking techniques, like, you know, like you said, the multi-cooker or sous vide or anything like that. You figure out new ways of cooking traditional Filipino foods. So it's very delicious.
Thank you, Gino. I appreciate that. That's so kind of you. I've also posted on the blog cooking with the air fryer. I have lechon kawali in the air fryer, and I think tofu sisig and adobo chicken wings in the air fryer. And the most favorite of my readers is the lechon kawali air fryer. If you'd like to try that, go on the search box and just type it, lechon kawali air fryer. It's fun and enjoyable, and I love to share my stories and my recipes that are classic traditional Filipino recipes I learned from my mother, which I have transformed to everyday home cooking in my American kitchen. Any more questions?
No, that's all. Francine is typing your links in the chat right now for people to find. And I also, as I mentioned earlier, you also write for Positively Filipino, correct?
Yes. I'm not just a food writer, I'm a journalist and I write about culture, history, and Filipino personalities who make a difference in our community. I have written about this fine young lawyer, Gino Barrica. Do you know him?
It was your best work, if I may say so myself.
Anyway, do you want me to say any more last statements before we end?
No, thank you so much for doing this. Everybody seems to really enjoy it in the chat. We'll be recording this. We'll be posting up the link for you to share and for other people to revisit. And we'll be very interested if anybody does try the recipe and wants to share pictures or share feedback or anything, please, email, Facebook, Instagram, anything.
Oh yes, please tag me or tag Gino or tag us. And I would love to see what you make and I'll share it with friends. I hope everybody keeps safe, Gino, Francine, and the rest of the FAM. I appreciate your having me over this afternoon, welcoming me into your homes and your kitchen. It's been a rough week for many of us Asians here in America, but we will move onward. We'll get through this. And don't forget, there's still a pandemic out there. Please be safe, masks up, double if you can. Get vaccinated once your age group expands. And just be safe.
Thank you, Tita.
Oh, thank you, Gino and Francine. Maraming salamat po sa inyong
Yes, thank you
lahat.
so much.
Mag-ingat po tayo.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.